Hello my friends, I'm glad to see you again. Today I will deal with three subjects. First, the Stockholm Syndrome. Second, the not-so-sleepy sleeper cells which attempt to do the Taliban's job right here at home. And three, the Constitution, which has been contorted by mobsters and their co-conspirators to the point that you have no rights in court because of the judicial tolerance for ex parte contacts by senators and congressmen paid for by yours truly opponent. In case you are unfamiliar with the term Stockholm Syndrome, it is the irrational affection by victims of abuse, or for that matter hostage victims, for their abductors. I can't find a better term to describe the current situation where a nation has been held hostage for 8 years by functionaries who confessed in public to war crimes, who planned a war 2 weeks after Bush's inauguration and 9 months before 9/11 even happened, then came up with cakomany stories about an Iraqi threat that never was. Then started the war with disastrous consequences for everybody involved by invading a country that, while controlled by a dictator, had nothing whatever to do with 9/11, leaving us now to clean up the Iraqi mess. These functionaries then started a new form of tourism, torture tourism, by operating a travel agency, including an airline lovingly called ACLU, to extract from victims information that much of the time was false on its face, or was targeting innocent victims like German national el-Masri, who had been confused with al-Masri, kidnapped in Macedonia and flown to Bagram base near Kabul, where he was tortured until found to be the wrong man, but released only months later and only after 2 calls from Condoleezza Rice. I informed Whitehouse counsel Gregg Craig of another case, a man tortured right here in Fayetteville. No action. Despite an overwhelming majority of the public demanding that the criminals who order torture, a violation of the law, should be prosecuted, Congress is still enamored with those who held this nation hostage and refuse to do so, presenting either the symptoms of Stockholm Syndrome or admitting complicity. Now, let's look at another case, this time the actions of people who openly declared that they have the same goals as the Taliban and al-Qaeda, that is, damaging the national economy. Al-Qaeda and their OPEC conspirators had a highly effective strategy too, raising the crude prices and thereby diverting billions and billions of dollars to foreign countries, and thereby damaging our economy. Talking about damages to the economy, you may want to look at gasoline prices in Europe during the 2008 peak. Here's a chart I have compiled showing $9 per gallon in Germany and the United Kingdom and $10 per gallon in the Netherlands. By now I think there are very few of us who do not understand that we are in a very serious economic downturn with millions of workers unemployed, a situation Obama inherited and which in part was caused by massive oil-related capital exports, a situation that will get worse if we, Hoover style, don't do anything. The only entity large enough to deal with this enormous crisis is the government, and the majority of economists, including Nobel Prize winner Krugman, agrees. Consequently, President Obama has pressed through Congress and with the help of 3 responsible Republicans through the Senate what is called the Economic Recovery Package, a rescue operation that, if anything, is not large enough. Sure enough, our Taliban sympathizers became active and began to try to torpedo any attempt to rescue the economy by opposing whatever remedy was and is up for discussion. Indeed, Rush Limbaugh argued openly that he hopes Obama fails in rescuing the economy, accepting that this country will sink into depression if nothing is done.
And I sure as heck want you to know I hope he failed.
This at a time when foreclosures hit a record high and even triggered action in Congress, otherwise impervious to the plight of the people. And when unemployment has reached levels in some states not seen for over 20 years, as in Republican Minority Leader John Bonner's state of Ohio. Rather than distancing themselves from Limbaug's rhetoric, as North Carolina Governor Sanford did, the Republican leadership gave him the Defender of the Constitution Award, thereby officially adopting Limbaug's position and making him the godfather of the Constitution. And this about characterizes the idea these godfathers have of the Constitution. No rights to property, no rights to be free from torture, no equal rights for women, and no access to the courts. I'm not pulling your leg. Let's start with eminent domain. In 2005, the Supreme Court gave in Kalo versus City of New London the city the right to take private property by eminent domain and then transfer it to a private developer solely for the purpose of increasing municipal revenues. In el-Masri versus Tenet, the Supreme Court followed the Bush DOJ argument and more recently the Obama DOJ argument that state secrets could be unreasonably revealed if a lawsuit against the government involving torture of a mistaken victim would go forward. Right. In Ledbetter versus Gautier, the Supreme Court held that unless a woman discovers within 180 days from the day of her employment that she is being paid less than her male counterparts, she loses her right to sue for damages. A ridiculous ruling that abandons the late discovery doctrine, tolling the statutes of limitations. Finally, the matter came up in Congress and passed as Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, with all but 3 Republicans voting against the equal treatment of women. Which brings me to another problem: the access citizens have to courts where large corporations are parties to litigation. I have before pointed to the results of our investigation of 52 congressmen and senators, which yielded that 50 had taken money from parties to litigation while litigation was pending in federal courts in the senators or congressmen jurisdiction, and did so in a pattern that strongly implies nexus. Let's look at James Sensenbrenner, the former chairman of the House Judiciary. You can find detailed evidence at csi-jacksonville.com. Click on Sensenbrenner. Sensenbrenner has a long history of interfering in pending court cases, the most published being a case pending in the 7th Circuit Court of Appeal, whose chief judge made Sensenbrenner's ex parte contacts public. Sensenbrenner, not man enough to stand behind his illegal activities, blamed his aide Appelson, though the letter was signed by Sensenbrenner himself, and fired Appelson, but had him rehired immediately by the Department of Justice without going through the vetting process, where he still works today like all the other Republican appointees. Because the Supreme Court decision in Ledbetter was so outrageous, we looked at the payment pattern of Goodyear Tire and Rubber's Political Action Committee and hit pay dirt. The pattern of payments made to Sensenbrenner matched the adverse litigation event pattern to the dot on the I. Adverse events that reversed a jury award to Ledbetter. You see, these bribery schemes are fail-safe. We and our attorney filed complaints with the FBI, the SEC, the Department of Justice, and we even informed the Whitehouse counsel of these racketeering schemes. None wanted to get involved, including Eric Holder, precisely because these scams work for both sides of the aisle. I guess we'll have to live with the Godfather's Constitution years to come. I'll see you.